Well, good morning, everyone. How's it going? How's everybody's day? It's Tuesday, second day of the week. And it means multiplayer. It means I'm joined by my co-host, Jealous Mike. Say hello, Jealous Mike.
Hello, everybody.
How's it going?
Good. Just having some yummy chicken and rice with veggies.
That's
with
nice.
Spiciness. Got some spices.
Aw. Thank you for that, host. Early morning hosts are pouring in.
Hey,
Not gonna complain, right?
Is that a commercial? Oh.
No, like when you first join.
Okay.
Yeah, when you first join, on certain things, at certain times they will play ads now on Twitch.
That's fantastic.
Yep, and there's no way around them. Even people with Prime accounts, there's no way around them.
Okay.
You know, it's whatever.
So when it comes to advertising, you know, we all dislike the idea of paying for anything. We want everything for free. And we even with cable, I mean, there's been a lot of things this way, but with cable, at first you paid a fee and then you had no commercials. With Hulu, you paid a fee, had no commercials. The CBS All Access, you paid a fee, and you can either pay less and have commercials or pay more and have no commercials. Yes, I love the idea of paying for no commercials, but
people aren't willing to pay enough to sustain it.
Correct. So if you have to choose between pay and have commercials or pay more and it just constantly go up and up and up and up, which would you really choose? So I don't mind commercials necessarily. Advertising is a necessity of our modern lives. Everything would be significantly more expensive if not for advertising.
I just wish that they wouldn't. I don't like advertising. For me, it has the exact opposite effect. You advertise something, I am less likely to use it.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I agree.
I am more likely. Hey, Jacksonator. I am more likely to not use your product if you advertise it to me. That's just the way I am.
But seeing the ad itself,
most of the ads are just annoying. I won't even give them the time of day. I turn the sound off. If I'm playing a mobile game and they want to give me something for the time, I will let them put it on, and because I know they can detect this stuff, I will intentionally put the phone face down. with the sound off. So any data they're getting from it is saying, well, he let us play the ad, but then he immediately put his phone down face down and he never saw it. So I don't know, Jacksonnator. Guess what?
He's still alive.
In this one he is. In my single player colony he's gone. Because I married him off to maintain the peace. Oh, your emote. Nice. I like it.
His puppies.
I like it. That's very nice.
Once upon a time we had huskies in this one.
At one point we did, I think. They joined us. We didn't have much of a say in the matter. So, Zoe's been on here renaming our animals, in case you're wondering. My goodness.
D's nuts. Wait, she named a pig D's nuts?
Yep. And Triggered. And she renamed one of our, or she named one of our, I guess we got a new one, the Brachiosauruses. She named it Blueby or something like that. I'm a seal, hit or miss. So, yeah, Zoe's been on here playing with us. Jacksonnator, it's going well. I was just commenting to Chalice Mike about the difficulties of trying to maintain a schedule when other people insert themselves into it. And it's rather frustrating. But before I start talking, I was going to ask Chalice Mike how he's doing. Because it's been, a couple of days since you were on stream.
Oh, that's right. I forget that you stream more often than I'm here.
Yes, I do. I stream 5 days a week. You're only here for 2 of them, except for last week when you were here for 4 of them.
Yeah, so I've been spending all my time hiding in my room like normal. If you consider that being a mental break in our characters here, it might be a mental break in reality too. Just mine's been going on for this time around for almost a year and a half maybe.
Yep, so I spend my time making sure throughout the day, every day, that he's doing things to take care of himself. Trying to make sure he goes to bed on time.
Yep.
Which usually doesn't. I don't really have much success, or I don't know about if I have much success in that one because I tend to go to bed before him, even though I'm an hour ahead of him, or an hour behind him.
And I don't respond at a certain point. I'm just like.
Yeah, he's just like, nope.
I hear you.
Nope.
I hear you.
I'll basically send one last message as I'm laying down, like, go to bed, and then I go to sleep. He does listen when I say take his medicine.
Yes, because that's. Yeah. And I do for the go to sleep, it's a reminder, if I feel capable of sleeping, I do lay down.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. I'm not telling you to go sleep and succeed. I'm just telling you to go try. There is a difference between sleeping and trying. Right? So we want you to succeed, but let's be realistic here. Sometimes you're going to lay down and it's just not going to work.
Yeah, so little successes. Let's see. So while I'm a very disorganized person, is in terms of, I have I tend to not fold my laundry. I let dust build up. I'm very clean, partially as a response to that apartment mess that you helped me clean up. I'm very clean when it comes to bacterial growth type things, dishes, gross stuff.
You mean when you don't have a massive beast of a dog messing your place up, it's easier to keep clean?
Yeah, and I don't want another pet. My roommate's guinea pigs are about as much as I can stand, and even then it drives me up the wall sometimes. Yeah. So small successes, I rather than just keeping the dishes, keeping on top of the dishes, I actually cleaned the sink itself, which it wasn't disgusting or anything, just that's something I normally don't do terribly often. Let's see, another small success. I got sleep last night. I mean, I don't feel like it was very restful. I had some disturbing dreams and rough sleep, but I actually slept.
That's a success.
Other small successes.
I wouldn't count what I did last night asleep. It was so disturbed and... Yeah. I wouldn't call it success,
but... If your eyes were closed and your brain less activated... Actually, it would be interesting to have a long-term sleep study that could have brain scans being done while you're sleeping, so you can see just how inactive.
The problem with sleep studies is that they arrange you in such a way that it's
unnatural.
Yeah, it's not a natural sleeping thing. I haven't done it, but my wife has, and and I've heard other people describe it. And they take you somewhere. It's a strange environment, and then they don't allow you to do the things that you would normally do, and you've got all this stuff attached to you.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonnator, if I had to describe last night's sleep, horrific, terror from beyond hell. Yeah, that was me. That was me last week. Oh, juice box, still tomato. You guys need to get a room, okay? And you need to keep this off stream. Thank you very much for stopping. Ha! They finished, and Juicebox got up and promptly started cleaning the room.
Hey, you know what? Is Juicebox a guy or a girl?
Juicebox is the male.
You know what? I'm not even gonna. Yeah, I guess gender doesn't really matter except in. I mean, stereotypes. Stereotypes usually have
some basis in truth.
Some basis in truth, or did at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It varies depending on the stereotype. But I will say, a very tangible expression of love to me is cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
So, me helping, like if I'm visiting family or friends, I help clean.
Yeah,
it's one of my ways of little acts of service. And then when people clean and do things like that for me, definitely feels like love. So for that being his expression of pillow talk, great.
Yeah, what I found is like doing things so that somebody else doesn't have to do them. It's a great expression. It's a great love language. What's even more powerful is doing something that the other person actually wants you to do, so that they don't have to do it. So my wife and I had this. We had this disagreement back when we lived in Germany. When I would come home and I would just hit. There was a set list of tasks that I would just do. Because A, they were mine to do, and B, they were easy for me to focus on and just do. And at some point, we had the discussion that, hey, there's a trade ship, trade some animals. We had the discussion that it's not helpful if I'm doing. It's nice that I'm doing these things, but it's more helpful if I actually ask her what she wants done.
Yeah.
So since then, I've been mindful of that, and I've been trying to make sure that when I do things like, to help out, that I'm hitting the things that she actually wants to be done.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jacksonnator, I've been having a lot of issues, as we talked before. It's just gotten worse lately. Yeah, and I want to finish that conversation, that we were having in Discord. Jacksonnator and I have been talking offline about his story. I want to hear the rest of your story before I start asking questions.
Yeah. Definitely, if you want to come on stream, you're welcome to.
That's kind of what we're talking.
It's not.
That's why
it's not really our place to.
No, I mean, I mentioned that I wanted to make sure that we brought some other perspectives on, and so he and I have been talking off stream about potentially having him come on. So I just figured, it's better to know what's coming rather than having it hit you blindsided while you're on stream.
So this is the term "coming out of the closet" is something that a lot of people reference to homosexuality and public identification as such. But that concept applies for any aspect of our lives that we hide from others. And I would say that mental health disorders and problems are things that we definitely closet ourselves with.
Oh yeah, there's a stigmatization that comes with it, especially in the career field that we were in. But and there, I'm sure we could come up with some other career fields, do some research where having a mental health problem means people look at you differently and treat you differently, and not necessarily in a way that's beneficial.
Coming out of that closet can be very difficult. I mean, I know people that, while I could guess what the issues are, educated guesses, I guess. While I could guess what their issues are, they're not comfortable. So, what the heck?
Delivery.
I wish. That would be awesome. Like delivery ice cream at 12 in the afternoon.
Watershine, she's got...
Oh, speaking of, my alarm to remind you to get off today is going to go off in 15 minutes. You want me to push that back or leave it?
Yeah, you need to set it to 1:15 your time.
Yeah, I set it to 12:15.
Yeah. I need to make sure that we end today at 12:30 because there's a lot of things. And
we are an hour apart.
yeah, so I'm looking at the trader. He'll buy animals. He also has a lot of food to buy.
All right, if we want to move, well, I'm not really paying attention to the game. I'm kind of more in it for the discussion today. I feel more energized, I guess.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of buffalo, but we have a lot of pigs, and so I don't know if there's any animals, and we could sell Willoughby, but he's bonded.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to sell bonded things. We could sell buffalo. What do we have? Oh man, excuse me.
Excuse you.
Excuse me from the bottom of my heart.
Live on stream, save forever.
If
so,
yeah, it would have been a fart.
While you look at the animals to trade, Isami Mario, I didn't realize she named grape surgery. Wow, she went through the whole pig thing. She went all through all the animals and started naming things, didn't she? I was mentioning to
talk to Jackson, or yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I mentioned it before stream with Chelsea Mike, and you guys just kind of got a hint of it with his reminder on his phone. I have a lot of issues when my day gets disrupted. It's really frustrating. And like I don't like getting up early. I am not an early to bed, early to rise kind of person. I do it voluntarily because I want to be able to do the stream and then take care of other things like editing and writing and then cleaning around the house and cooking dinner and stuff, so I can hang out with the family in the evening. So I'm not working until the evening. I don't like doing that. So I voluntarily go to bed early and get up early. And I like doing that because then there's minimal disruption. Michelle says goodbye to me when she leaves. Zoe, I kind of just have to make sure she's awake. I have to walk the dog every couple of hours, obviously. That's a planned break. One of them is when Zoe leaves, so we walk her to the bus, so he gets a nice long walk. And but for the most part, until the stream at 10:30, so the last walk is at 10. Until then, it's like this 4-hour period with minor interruptions where I can get a lot of work done, the work stuff, and then go through the rest of my day. And then when something disrupts that, so like yesterday, Zoe comes home and says, guess what? I need to go to tutorial, which means she needs to do extra credit, and she needs to go early so she can have some extra time to work on assignments. So what that means is I have to leave the house at 6:50 to drive my wife to school. So there's 15 to 20 minutes gone right there. Come back, try to get some work done. 45 minutes later, leave to take Zoe to school, and that's a 15-minute drive one way, almost 20-minute drive one way. So inevitably, I'm losing 45 minutes to an hour just doing those two things of that 4-hour period that I've set aside.
That's nuts.
And the whole rest of my day is completely dictated by that. Because then I got to get back, and I got to try to get myself back on task when I've had to be out and about dealing with drivers, dealing with people, and my mind is not there. And I come back, and I mean, Chalice Mike, you can say it. You can tell him I was so distracted this morning. Mm-hmm. What were we get on? I need to work, and we're talking about Rimworld.
Yeah, we're starting. We started 15 minutes late, 20 minutes late.
Yeah, because I was trying to get some work done.
Yeah,
well, and some of that was I was having technical difficulties with Streamlabs.
Yeah, but usually you should have those you have those knocked out beforehand.
Yeah, I know, because 10 a.m. I walk the dog. By 10:10 I'm back inside, then I've got 20 minutes to go through all of the things, the setup and stuff. So at 10:30 I can go live, but I couldn't do that today.
Yeah,
because it was all messed up. And so when we're done here, I wanted to finish at 12:30, and then quickly make lunch, and come right back over here. And from 1 to 2, I wanted to edit and write. And I was gonna tell us, Mike, is that if you can stay awake, because you may need to go take a nap, make me edit and write. Don't let me talk about anything else. Just if you hear me start getting distracted, say, that's what I was gonna have him do. And then 2 o'clock, walk the dog again. 2:30. So when the device tells me, start cleaning. I was going to go in the bedroom and clean the bedroom so I could be ready. That was my whole day. I had it planned out. And then now it's all thrown to pot. And last night, Zoe and Art, they announced, oh, by the way, we don't have school Friday. And of course, Zoe wants to stay home. And she's like, I'll stay in my room all day. I'm like, no, you won't. No, you won't. So... yeah, lovely. So, It's just, I'm very much a creature of habit now, and when these things get disrupted, I know it shouldn't be that disruptive, but for me, it's so disruptive to my life, my day-to-day routines. I'm not looking forward to when family visits, because family's coming to visit at the beginning of June. I am not looking forward to that, because they're going to come. They're not staying here, but they're going to be coming over in the morning, right in the middle of my work time, potentially right during my stream time, and they're going to want to socialize, and I don't want.
Yeah.
So, just for now, can we keep it limited to slow speed or to regular speed? Because I'm losing frame rates.
I didn't know I'd sped it up. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I don't know why.
Probably just have it from.
Did you send another person to sell?
Yeah, so I moved some of the brachiosauruses over. I thought that maybe we couldn't sell them because they weren't close enough.
He doesn't want them, I don't think. Well, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, they're down below. The trader's not willing to buy.
Oh, I should have looked at that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. So, and then yesterday, I didn't even think about this. Yesterday, I was very focused. I was so focused. And Cellist Mike, he tells me, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. What was the topic? Self-forgiveness? Yes. So yesterday is important to my family for more than just it's an important day and for everyone in the country. I did have to file an extension on my taxes. Cellist Mike reminded me, and I did it. That was easy. But yesterday is important to our family because 19 years ago yesterday, my wife said yes to us getting married. And I spent the entire weekend reminding myself to remember to wish her happy anniversary. And then the day of, forgot.
You're still a better man than me.
I remembered the April 12th one. I remembered because April 12th was we have a couple of anniversaries. So December, I think it's 4th, is the day we were introduced to each other. In 1997. February 12th of 1998 was when we crossed paths again at a meeting. March 12th, the very next month we started dating. 2 weeks later we broke up, and then April 12th we started going out again.
How do you guys remember these dates?
I remember these dates.
How do you remember these dates?
There's something I used to be really, really good about remembering dates, down to the point I could remember when we left, when we moved, where we lived, to how long we lived there, what day of the month we left.
Jeez,
I can still remember some of them, but it's harder now. I can tell you that over the past 2 years, I'm having a harder time remembering these things. My memory is just not there now.
I mean, part of that might be from getting older, but that's also a PTSD symptom.
It got much worse in the past 2 years, which is when my flare-up happened.
That's a thing. Totally a thing.
So yeah, I got a message from my wife yesterday around lunchtime saying happy anniversary, and it's like, I forgot to say it. I forgot entirely. I was so and I didn't even mention it on stream yesterday. It's like yesterday was a big day, and I didn't. But yeah, I do have the memory for those things. May 4th, 2006 was when we discovered that Michelle was pregnant with Zoe.
Hey, may the 4th be with you.
Mm-hmm. That was when we messaged. I just had some really bad news at work, and so getting that was some good news. Yeah. I don't remember what the bad news was now. Oh, I think it was that I was on security hold, and so I was stuck. And there was no telling. There was no telling when it was going to be done.
I thought you guys were stuck in California because of her being pregnant.
No, that wasn't us.
Oh,
yeah, that was
Granada.
Yeah. I still remember her. I still remember her maiden name. Like, cause she was in class with me as that person.
Yeah.
What are you moving? Oh, he's reinstalling a. Oh. There's no.
Oh yeah, I canceled the ones that you had, or I had probably set.
Yeah, is that one?
Change them to move those others.
Yeah, is that one that's meant to be set or built? Because he said he can't work on it because there's no path. But I mean, for crying out loud.
It's because somebody's carrying it right now.
Oh, that makes sense. So, yeah, I was definitely feeling down. I had to practice that, self-forgiveness kind of thing. And then last night, I mean, at this point, I don't even remember what I dreamed. I just remember last night, I was so not wanting to be in the dreams I was having. It's like, it's hard to want to do these things, like sleep, because you just know it's going to be bad.
There's a med, Buspirone? No, I don't know. Buspar. Man, to find the meds that actually helped me, it took trying a lot of different ones.
Mm-hmm.
So Buspar is supposed to help reduce nightmares.
Supposed to.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like I can't help but feel like so much of the trouble with sleep, like getting to sleep or staying to sleep, it's just this fear. Like, as weird as that may sound to some people, I don't think it. If you think
yeah, you go to sleep and you're like, I'm going to have to.
You're afraid to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're afraid. You don't you need to lay down and go to sleep. Every night I'm like, I need to go lay down and sleep, and there's a part of me that wants to go rest.
Exactly. So Buspar for me, it made my heart race.
You should
and it made it
make sure you say for people who are listening what you're referencing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So Jack Sander gave some input. He said Buspar increased my night terrors, and yeah, it's like I didn't necessarily have that specific, increase of the night terrors, but the increased heart rate made it so I couldn't sleep. But yeah, it's like meds. A med may do things for one person and not do it for another person. And
it's experimental with each person.
Yes.
You don't you watch them, since we started off talking about ads. You watch these ads where they were, which, because I don't know about you guys, but almost every ad I see now is a medicine ad. Like, I don't see anything else there. And if you have the sound down, it's really funny trying to figure out what they're talking about.
Businesses, it's incredibly rare to find a business whose motivation is your best interest. It's just
it's all about profit. Which, okay, I am not going to spite somebody wanting to make profit, because I know that profit is paying someone else's income.
Well, yeah, it's now, like everybody that works for that company is getting, they're able to work.
Now, we can have hours and hours and hours discussions about levels of compensation for various people in work. For me, that's market forces. Like, if market forces can afford to pay that person that amount, and then let them. Now, morally speaking, should they be making sure that everybody in their company gets a better shake of that stick? I will not disagree with that statement, but that's not my place to decide for that company.
Yeah, that kind of takes me back. This is a very, very small tangent, I guess. When we were first working in our little
cave,
deployed but not deployed.
Oh, the building across the building in the parking lot. Yeah, when
so
my one deployment, like actual deployment, where they deployed me and the Air Force couldn't touch me for 6 months, 7 months, I was quite literally across the street.
But our military records show that as an deployment.
Hey, El Dirty Squirrel, welcome in.
How goes it?
How goes it? We're doing a little mental health checkup today and talking about some of the issues we face and playing a little multiplayer Rimworld. What have you been playing lately? Let's see. Did I get that right? You've been playing Sekiro. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I've seen a lot of that. So, but welcome on in.
We're playing this. Yeah, that works.
So go ahead. What were you saying?
Just
when we were working in this mini deployed environment across the street.
Like, sure, the work schedule may have been a deployment schedule, but when you can go home and sleep in your own bed.
Oh, psychic drone.
Your shower.
Yeah, and for me, I was on days as opposed to mids, so for me, it was glorious.
Yeah, it's like, sure, you're working 7 days a week. Well, actually, did we have a day off or just a half day off? I don't remember.
No, I was doing.
You got days off.
I was doing 4 and 3.
Really?
Yeah, I was on a 4 and 3. But it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, but that's just normal.
Yeah, I know, because they were trying. It was right after you left. They were trying to make it feel more like a regular. Remember, I was the last person that the unit, deployed to that thing. I was the last one. After that, they would not let anybody else go. That to be treated deployed. So hang on, just a second.
So while he's gone, yeah, he's just the topic for today is kind of more impactful for him than it is for me, just because with a family and not having the same level of financial stability from the government.
It's like I call the office and say, "Hey, please don't tell them not to come between 10:30 and 12:30."
Oh,
what they do?
We were in Discord yesterday when you called them.
Yeah, and of course they're all like, they're being as polite as possible. No, they're being as polite as possible about it. But let's just say that you could tell they were like, "Fine, we just won't." It's like, dude, I work here. So, but yeah, I was the last one that they deployed there, meaning that they couldn't touch me for anything like PT tests, language tests, anything like that. Everyone else that went after me was just basically assigned to that shop. It was treated like you were just assigned to that shop.
Which is how it should have been in the first place.
Should have been, yeah. But I mean, you remember about like a year before I got there, they were still doing a lot of really serious stuff. So it was much more important that they be untouchable. Anyway, you were saying, in that mini deployed environment.
You used to come out with me when when I would go out for smoke breaks, and we were a lot further apart in our political ideology back then.
Yes.
I mean, we're still not the same, but we're closer than we were then, I think. And we would agree in just very, very basic principle stuff, and everything was always just any differences was always just, how do you do it?
Yes.
This is what needs to
be. We agreed on a lot of things that needed to be done, just disagreed on how.
Yeah. And I think business is definitely one of those where that, follows the example. Like, without those medication companies, big pharma is the critics who refer to it.
Yeah, I as much as pharma, as much as I would think that big companies like that need to be managed in a way that everybody can agree on.
You can't take for granted just how beneficial having that medication in our society is.
Yeah. Well, again, they're in a society as large as the global scale. You're going to have some form of regulation. There's just no way around it. My biggest issue is, honestly, frankly, it's not that I don't care about things like big pharma, big oil, big whatever, big farm, whatever. For me, the greatest threat to our society is none of those. It's big education. Because it is literally untouchable. We cannot touch big education, because if you talk about it, and here I am, I'm talking about it. If you even talk about the idea that not everybody should go to college, you are instantly labeled as something from our past, where people would abuse the ability to prevent people from going to school to enforce like a caste system on society. And in the 20th century, we broke away from that, intentionally trying to spread the wealth kind of mentality and increase an individual's lifetime earning potential, because a college degree does do that. A college degree does increase, the studies have shown that a college degree, but just a bachelor's, can increase a person's lifetime earning potential by $1 million. But that's an average.
Just like everything.
That's an average.
Regardless, yeah, it's like anytime people are involved,
and in order to
will corrupt anything.
Yeah, and in order to get that earning potential, I am still paying that debt off.
Yeah.
And before my European viewers decide to chime in and go, you should try it here. Okay, let's just think about this for a second.
You're still paying for it.
I'm paying a set total over a period of time. And once that's gone, I don't have to deal with it anymore. In Europe, you don't have to deal with student loans. Instead, you're paying a portion of your taxes for the rest of your existence for that degree. In the long run, You're paying
basic
more.
principle is the basic principle is the same.
Yes, but if your concern is how much is being spent on student loans, then you should,
Yeah.
and you're not concerned about how much you're paying in taxes for the same thing over the long term. That there's a dichotomy there. If you're like, you should be, if how much is being spent on student loans is the problem, then how much is being spent on college, period, should be the problem. Do we need to be spending $200, $300, $400,000 to go to college? That's where my issue is. It's not with the fact that I don't think everybody should be educated, although I think that our system, our education system here in the U.S. and in a large part in much of the West is basically just a college feeder system designed to feed people into college. So it's just one big self-perpetuating incestuous relationship between the colleges and the governments at the state and the federal level and the school systems. It's just one big incestuous relationship designed to keep people feeding into the college, which keeps people employed at the collegiate level, pays for tenure and all that crap like that. It's just this big giant incestuous relationship that's not beneficial to society at large, not at the levels that they claim.
I would say, so if you had to pick between polar opposites, if you had to have just no broad scope education system, I would rather have it the way we do now than have no broad scope education system.
No, I think that having broad scope education is a very good thing. I just think that we have gone.
Is in how it's done, yeah.
Everything now is focused on the college as it's currently. And if you were to suggest that people be tracked into different types of higher education learning environments, this is where you start getting into those. And I mentioned it the other day, the identity politics crap of what. The reason why colleges became what they are is because for so long people were abusing the system to keep a caste in society, to keep certain groups out of power. Yeah. The power was abused. So when we broke free of that in the 20th century, the system we created was designed to get as many people who had been denied the ability to get an education, which would have included me, because the family that I came from, we were dirt poor rednecks.
Oh, I thought you were going to say veterans, but yeah.
No, there were veterans too, but we never would have gone to college. We never would have gone. If it wasn't for the GI Bill, the Montgomery GI Bill, I don't think. In fact, yeah, a lot of my mom and dad's generation level, not on my dad's side, but on my mom's side, a lot of them went to college after the fact.
Yeah.
I was I think one of the first ones in both on my mom's side and my dad's side to go to college straight out of high school. One of the first. But I had to go into massive debt to do it. So when I talk about that how within the 20th century we were trying to open up education to get more people in, that included the families that I came from, because we were not in a group that would have been able to go to college. So that's a benefit. The problem is it was connected to such charged topics that the idea of saying some people just shouldn't go to a traditional Western European Germanic style college, and they should and maybe they would benefit from a more technical degree, like a computer degree, that's not classroom heavy based, but is more functional on the job based.
Yeah.
Just throwing something out there as an example. Or
some
that
of that responsibility, I think, can be put on hiring practices, and this is
hiring practices, yeah. But I think also at the school level, at the secondary level, we should be we call it like makerspace. It used to be called shop class. There used to be all kinds of different things that you could learn a skill in.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I wish we would do is require all the students to learn a trade, and then make them go apprentice themselves in a place where they're going to get paid enough to live, and they're going to have the care that they would get from a full-time employment. But they're getting, they're learning on the spot. And then at that point, if they decide they want to go to college, let them put themselves through college.
Yeah, right now, like that's in a lot of states. I would say most states, as far as I'm aware, those things are options. But something so basic being optional
Mm-hmm.
when go
But
get
it's
a
not.
4-year degree
But it's not encouraged.
norm.
The
Yeah.
schools are all, the schools at the public schools from kindergarten up to 12th grade are all focused on getting you to college,
Yeah.
not on getting you a trade skill that you could then use to put yourself through college.
Well, and then in terms of societal benefit, what's the societal benefit of having a highly educated but completely unexperienced in the workforce person?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's the advantage is that you can abuse them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about something that you and I both have personal experience in. How linguists, hey, you look up, imagine that, Zoe's going on a food binge again. Linguists, when they first come in, okay, you remember what it was like working the jobs that we worked when we first came in. We got put on the worst shifts, doing the most basic jobs that the more experienced linguists didn't want to do anymore, and the more experienced analysts and the civilian contractors, they didn't want to do anymore. So they would put us on, and because we were enlisted, we couldn't really negotiate our contract or anything like that. We just had to do what they told us. So you ended up with people who were extremely intelligent. Some of them came in with multiple degrees. I mean, one of my classmates, he came in with 4 college degrees. He knew 5 languages when he came in. So, I mean, and he was 25. So the average age for the linguists that were coming out of DLI was,
It was
I
higher
think
than
4 or 5 years higher than the others,
then
because most of us went to college first.
the academic background was also a lot more
Yeah.
advanced.
So you're talking about an extremely intelligent workforce that was coming in and basically being put on permanent mids, doing the dullest, most basic level work, because yeah, sure, we were highly educated and we'd gone to, and we were, highly intelligent, but as far as the work was concerned, we were inexperienced and nobody wanted to do the work we were doing. And then they would work you to as hard as they could for those 3. Initially, it was you could do 4 and 6 year enlistments. Now they won't let linguists do anything other than 6 years.
Well,
because
very, very honestly, part of that is just the US's military practices.
Well, yeah, but I'm using this as an example of something that you and I are both familiar with. We have linguists who would come in that on a 4-year thing. They would spend almost 2 years in training, and then the Air Force would have them for 2 years, and they would work them to the bone, just everything they possibly could to get out of them for those 2 years, because they knew they were likely not going to re-enlist. Because let's be honest, when you and I first started, there was a 90 to 95% dropout rate in our language.
Oh yeah, so
First
I remember
termers.
seeing. This was so freaking hilarious. They would enlist people into that career field, and this wasn't just the Air Force. This was all the services. So we were almost exclusively joint service stuff. We were in the Air Force, but except for a short period of time, we didn't really work for the Air Force. Well, I guess you were working for the Air Force more.
Yeah, social fight. Warren and Jack Snyder. Jack Snyder, stop causing problems.
But yeah, so it's like the workload was always so insane that nobody would stay. And so to keep the military structure of having, people of higher rank above, the military's solution to making sure you have enough people in charge is to hire more people. And so you grow your base of the unskilled workforce to try to offset the massive base of unskilled workforce.
Yeah. They were constant. There was a never-ending flow of new linguists coming in. Unfortunately, it wasn't. And this comes back to the military. Yeah, well, this goes back to the military practice of it doesn't matter if we break them because we can just get another one straight out of the pipeline. The people at the higher level didn't understand how long it took to get a replacement linguist.
Well, I would say the people at the highest levels, when you're talking about personnel decisions, like at the highest levels, like service-wide or DoD-wide, how many people do we need?
No. I genuinely don't think the Army ever really gave it any thought.
Well, the Army.
Just break them. Well, because remember, you said we work joint environment.
That's true.
I witnessed people being worked overworked and overworked to the point where they just gave up, where they couldn't do it anymore and quit, didn't re-enlist. And the mentality was, well, it's fine, we'll just replace you. It's like, we can't replace that person. That person, like when I first got to Georgia, there was the training that I had was done by there was a couple of people did my training. One of them was that classmate I told you about who knew 5 languages because he got in 6 months before me. But there were 2 others who were there. And individually, they were not perfect. One of them was a horrible airman, but he was a walking encyclopedia. He was just a walking dictionary for the language we were working
I know
in.
who that is.
Yeah, Roy. The guy who
I was gonna say his name.
The guy who was if you want on, he's the kind of person you look at him and you think, I would not want him in my survival team if I was going to try to survive the apocalypse. But that kid knew how to he knew how to eat off the land. He
could survive.
He could survive if absolutely necessary as a complete net, and he was a vegetarian. So he knew exactly how to do it. So he's one of those, you look at him and you think, boy, this guy's like a strong breeze would blow him away. But as he was being blown away, he would grab every plant he needed to survive. Anyway, but
he didn't know how to use deodorant.
Didn't know how to use deodorant.
Exactly which plants in the environment were safe to eat.
Yeah, and his social skills were interesting. And I loved talking to him. He was fast. He was a fount of information. I loved talking to him. But when it came to doing the job and being an airman, no. Roy was not an airman. He eventually, I think he eventually moved on. But his counterpart who was training me, she was a brilliant in terms of airman, but also just an operator. She was just absolutely, she could do that and carry on a conversation and train me at the same time. And I mean, she was the one when poo hit the fan, you wanted her sitting there working. The 2 of them together were a machine because he would do all the linguist side of it and she would do everything else, and they could just handle anything. And when I got there, she was exiting because she couldn't pass the DLPT, the language test. And we were going to be hurting without her there, and we tried to say this, and the Air Force just didn't care. Like, she can't meet standards. Time to get out. It's like, yeah. And of course, Roy, being not the perfect airman, was always on. He was on that line also, with PT tests or things like that, and other quirks of his. So 2 people who together were just a brilliant team and were so effective at the job were just chewed up and spit out. And that was, that to circle this back around, you want to talk, you asked the question, what does society benefit from having a bunch of highly educated and experienced, workers coming in? It's that you can abuse them because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
Interns, there's a reason why there's this thing nobody wants to be an intern because interns are basically unpaid slave labor. And if you don't do it, you don't get the recommendations, you don't get the blah, blah, blah. So you just have to grin and bear it and deal with it. It's like, that's why society likes having a lot of highly educated and experienced newbies, because they can abuse them. So I've told you before what I think the simplest solution to the student debt problem is, right? Well, what I think would be the number one, like the fastest way to fix it, but not completely dismantle it and get rid of it, because you're not going to do that at this point. Did I ever tell you?
Maybe.
Basically, my idea was student debt. Okay, it's there. We all need student loans to go to college at this point because college is just too expensive. So my idea was, I go to school. I'm fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, whatever. Fresh out of high school, go to school, and it's going to cost me $200,000 to go to college, and it's going to be all done on student loans because I don't fall into any of the nice categories for scholarships. So I'm $200,000 in student loans, right? So that gets put on my record. I've got $200,000 to pay, and since all of these loans are federally insured, they pretty much all come from the government, right? Mm-hmm. So the government keeps that little tab there. So here's his $200,000. And until I have paid that loan off, the school doesn't get any of the money. Since the price is being set by the school, because they're like,
they'll
this is
find
what
more.
this is what our tuition costs. We're going to increase our tuition costs. We're going to increase our room and board costs. We're going to they find classroom fees, lab fees. They're just going to find any way they possibly can to keep driving that cost up because they want to just make those fees larger because they want to get more money that comes in. Because as soon as you sign the thing, and the loan is approved, they get the money in the bank. So if you flip that around and basically say, okay, yeah, you're going to get $200,000 from the student because that's what your program costs, but you aren't going to get it until the student has paid it back. Mm-hmm. You think those colleges are going to keep those fees at that high rate if they know they're not going to see that money for 20 years?
The focus will turn to... So the focus will always be on money.
Always, because they're for profit.
Well, and
even public schools are for profit because they gotta pay themselves.
Even let's say you have a strictly communist, functioning socialist, socialized ideology, communist government system. Everything is still about money. How much does this cost?
Again, you mean socialist because communist is just militant socialism. That's the definition. Communism is militant socialism. You're going to do it or I'm going to kill you. Whereas socialism is, which is what you're talking about, is just, it's so, okay. Just to clarify the terms, what you are specifically talking about, that communal life thing where it's a community goal, like that term has unfortunately been co-opted by the militant communism of the 20th century. So, just so we're not confusing people when we say this.
Well, so it's still about money. How much does everything cost?
And who's paying for it? Yeah.
It's still all just about money. So it's like, regardless of ideology, regardless of political leanings or thoughts or ideals,
money makes the world go round.
Money makes the world go round. And they'll still be focused on money. But if the way to make that money is to match the training and teaching and functioning to employability,
mm-hmm.
Because if they're not going to get paid unless the person makes the money to pay them, then the focus, in order to get the money, becomes on employability.
Yeah. You're not wrong. And honestly, no society has figured this. No one society has figured out how to do this. Like, some societies can pretend like they have. I found as a student of history that the societies that pretend like they figured this stuff out tend to be the ones that fall.
Well, and then coming back to comparing societies, that's really rough because you can look at this society has this. I'm not saying you should dump the baby with the bathwater ever. Everybody has an opportunity to learn from one another. Is more what the point I'll make is.
And that's when we talked about this. I think it was last week about the connectivity of the interconnectivity of the world today has all but guaranteed that the major world powers have not gone to battle with each other.
Yeah. And
that is a direct result of how the world put itself back together after World War II.
Like, we could learn, we as the U.S., for example, we could learn education lessons from Japan, but we probably don't want to learn social class practices from Japan.
Oh no.
Probably.
No, if you have an issue with societies having these caste systems in them that you are predetermined and your entire culture and religious history is around making sure people are content within the caste that they are born into, don't study Asian history because it is riddled with it.
And so anytime we want to change something, and so
saving.
I'm inherently progressive, but by saying that, I mean that I think there's always a better way. There's always something that can be done differently to be more effective,
mm-hmm.
to be more fair, to treat people better, to
and a system that can a system that can allow itself to grow is the kind of system that you want. The systems that have failed in the past are the systems that just kind of they reach a point of critical mass where they can't grow because they're inflexible, or just the system is just incapable. One of the two.
In reality, though, I'm very moderate because I think that progress for, like, changing something for the sake of change in and of itself is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's always things that need to be changed. Before you make changes, really study what it is you're doing.
Yeah, like that quote I shared last week. Don't make a law because of the good that you think it will do, but first consider the evil that could be done if you pass the same law.
Yeah. So, based on our stream topic, I think that what I thought was going to be a small tangent
turned into a big tangent.
I think that's relevant because what was the stream topic again?
Mental health check.
Oh, I thought it was you had asked me about talking about the impact of how forgetting things.
Oh yeah, that's part of it, the mental health check, because I found myself being very forgetful the past several days. And I think it's directly correlated to how much stress I was experiencing from the stuff that I'd put on myself over the past, week.
Mm-hmm.
So
your brain stops
and
prioritizing.
I used to be a lot more functional than this, but one of the things I've had to think about is how much of that was just because I was forced into that by the path that life took me down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the path I took was high school, college, and then go try and find work with a massive amount of debt that I was going to be stuck with and my family would be stuck with until it was paid off. I mean, and that debt determined what the jobs that I took later. When we lost our teaching jobs, I enlisted.
Yeah.
Domino effect to where I am now. So, and the decision to do that, to go to college, yeah, sure, I met my wife. I got so all the things that came from that, yeah, nice, good. But the domino effects of me choosing to go into debt to go to college it's just this long train of events that's led to here. And had I been able to go to college in a way that didn't saddle me with debt, I very likely never would have enlisted.
Yeah.
Because it would not have been as big a compulsion.
Yeah, that sense of desperation wouldn't have been there.
Yeah. And I hate to say it, but that really is the military's best recruitment tool, desperation.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's getting married.
Like, yes, it's voluntary.
Cassius Belli is... everyone's getting married. We have a marriage ceremony going on.
We live in what a lot of people like to call a free country. But that doesn't mean we're free to do what we want.
No. Freedom does not mean that you can do what you want. It just means that you're welcome to the consequences of what you choose to do.
Yeah. It's
like the whole thing of like I have freedom of speech. It's like, sure, you can say whatever you darn well please, but that does not mean you don't have to face the consequences of saying what you just said.
It means that the government, well, I was about to say the government will throw you in jail for what you say, but that's not really true necessarily. It depends.
It depends.
It depends.
There are places in the world where you voice your opinion that's different from the government, and you will disappear. China.
Well, I mean, on a very, very extreme scale, threats are one example of it in the United States. You cannot threaten somebody.
Oh, you can't threaten. I mean, your society will react. It depends. The system may not react, but society will react if you threaten people.
Yeah.
And it's verifiable. Like if somebody witnesses it or things like that. There's going to be a consequence to a threat, period. What I was referring to was like the and this was highlighted during the 2008 Olympics, where people were given specific places that they could go protest, and people that went to those places to protest, things like, oh, you tore my building down to build that Olympic building, and you didn't build me one, and you didn't give me a place to go live, just vanished, and were never heard from again.
Yeah.
So they followed the rules, got the permit, went to the place, and then suddenly just vanished.
And that's yeah.
Life could be worse. Life could be worse.
we may call ourselves free, but there's always limitations on that. And then the amount of people who go live their lives day to day, where their primary motivation is being necessity. That's, you can call that free.
Well, that was the beauty of the industrial age. Okay, a lot of people like to look back on the industrial age now as this doom, this bad thing that happened because it's had all these negative results. Like the power of the industrial age was in that it freed humanity from being the primary power source for food production.
Yeah.
Because prior to the industrial age, food production was dependent upon manpower with help from animals. But it was still massively...
Necessity is...
the mother of invention.
The mother of invention, but I would also say the ultimate master.
Yeah. But
we're all slaves to necessity.
We are all still slaves to that era. Think about it. Just last month, what did we all do to our clocks? We moved our clocks. We moved our clocks because of it's a holdover from a time when we needed to take advantage of the fact that there was only so much light available, and we needed to make sure that we were up and ready to use it because we didn't have electricity to light things up so we could work at night. So it wasn't just farming that benefited from it; it was people in offices and stuff like that. If you were awake during the day, you had a window, you had light. You didn't have to burn a candle. You didn't have to burn coal. Whatever it was, you didn't have to burn gas to be the city of lights, Paris, which is where it got its name from, because it had so many gas lights in the industrial age. It didn't come later. It came because of that, because they were so determined to have light at night that they put gas lamps everywhere. But
it can be argued that as necessity changes, we say, so the concept of first world problems, we live in such luxury
that everybody wants.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with that, but necessity being contextual.
Well, it's the brilliance of invention. A good inventor is going to build something that you didn't realize you needed. Take for example, that device on the other side of that green screen. I didn't realize how much that device was going to make my life easier until I got it. I mean, I knew the tangential benefits of it, having a device that you could just speak to, blah blah blah, ask for things. I knew that stuff. But in terms of my recovery, in terms of my day-to-day managing of my symptoms and the ups and downs of how functional I am, I had no idea. But somebody did a decade ago, or not sooner. I mean, and if you look at TV, we've been hoping for something like that for 50 years. I mean, Star Trek had that.
Yeah.
You okay?
I'm tired.
Yeah, you've been up longer than I have. Actually, no, I think I got up before you. You just had more... Actually, I don't know what your sleep was like last night. I remember you said that you tried and failed. And then did eventually fall asleep.
I think I fell asleep around 2.
My theater seating is being used. Yay.
Theater seating around a little tube television.
I know.
That's okay.
I like that. Tilt Tomato sat right in front of Chalice Mike. It's like,
The only times I'll get televisions in this game is if the other recreation sources have been deleted and you need something new.
Yeah. We have too many animals, man.
Yeah.
I'm
not doing anything. I'm just...
Yeah, all of our tanks are no longer tankable.
Well, and you see there's 3 Allosauruses that have returned to the wild.
Yeah. That's fine.
I mean, these are the repercussions of trying to move a base, is everything else.
Yeah.
You have to prioritize everything in this game.
I think at this point, though, we've moved everything. There are a couple of things that still need to be dismantled, but I think everything's been moved.
I mean, walls need to be smoothed. Floors need to be laid.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could spend some time keeping this running.
No. The whole point I was trying to make, well, all these other tasks. Anytime a new task is introduced, something else falls behind.
Mm-hmm.
In this game.
In this case, it's the animals. Who are our best animal people? Maybe we could take them off of doing what they're doing, just so they can.
For this many animals, you need like 3 or 4 people doing animal stuff.
Yeah. Well, we have 4 people set at 2. It's just their priorities are matching and other things like wardening and stuff like that. Yeah, I didn't say I had a solution. I was just looking at the possibility. I didn't say I was going to open the screen and the answer would be there. It's just like, is there...
Back on topic.
Yeah. The topic.
It's very easy. It's very easy in life for one thing to take priority over another, intentionally or unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's unintentional... Oh, jeez, excuse me. Holy crap.
There was nothing holy about that.
It's just a giant hole passing through my body. A black hole.
Those were your words, not mine.
I'm not going to comment on the smell. Jeez.
Anyway, you were saying, some things will be...
Yeah, some things get left behind, and you don't mean for it to happen. Sometimes that's really important, and it's really emotionally disturbing.
Yeah.
For me, I have significantly less responsibility in my life, less things that I am accountable for than you. So I think the impact on me is significantly less. So why don't you talk about the impact on your emotional state when important things go away?
It's
get forgotten.
It's brutal because especially, and it's really bad when you have all of these things in place to help you and you still miss something. And I mean, you can try as much as you want to practice self-forgiveness, but that only goes so far. Because something important didn't get done, and it was your responsibility to do it. And you have all of these strategies in place to make sure that you do it, and you still forgot. And I also have a difficulty separating. I'm getting a little better about it. I have difficulty separating actual emergencies from what people like to think are emergencies. Case in point being the whole issue with the Air Force and my travel vouchers. If it was actually an emergency, they would just fix it. So it's for me, it's like, okay, yeah, if you were really serious, then you would. But instead, they just keep dumping it on me. And when you have that combined with all of the things that I'm trying to do in terms of supporting my wife in her new temporary career and taking over the responsibilities of being the stay-at-home parent, and then you get the 3:30 rolls around, and you know that they're getting ready to come back, and you're looking at your day, and you didn't get enough done. You didn't get the things that you were hoping to get done. You maybe possibly got like 1 or 2 of them done, and you knew, and you look at it and you know exactly why, because you didn't, because this thing happened or this, and it's literally like running yourself through the ringer.
Always something that didn't get done. Always something that needs to be done.
Yeah, it's never ending.
It sounds exhausting.
It is very exhausting. It's mentally exhausting. And then to add to that, I can't just, like, if something needs to be taken care of outside of the house, I can't just hop in the car and go. Because I have a hard time managing people around me. But if I have the dog with me, people tend to manage themselves a little bit better. Now, that's not always true, as I mentioned last week with the knuckleheads at Walmart. There are other elements that you have to deal with. But I can tell you today, when I was at Kroger, everybody there was very mindful of the fact that he was a service dog and were giving me space. And except for the one guy who felt like he had to tell me that I have a very pretty dog. It's like, yeah, because I want to be talked to right now. I have headphones in. Right? I'm not looking at you. I'm focused on what I'm doing at the checkout thing. I very, very clearly don't want to be talked to, yet still someone insisted on talking to me. And that, like, okay, fine, someone insisted on talking to you. Guess what? That started in my head, and instantly my back started to twist. All of my nerve endings started to go on in. My armpit started to itch, and I couldn't focus on what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because one guy felt like it was his right to come up and talk to me when I very clearly was not available to talk to. And I have heard people say, well, you just need to learn to deal with it. It's like, that is not the answer.
Like, okay, it's a dysfunction. Yes, you should be able to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to manage it. It shouldn't be a problem. You can't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But that's synonymous with saying your brain shouldn't be dysfunctional.
Yeah. Just the idea of Michelle and Zoe being home on Friday set me into a mini panic. I'm like, I am not that's 2 days this week that I'm going to completely lose because my routine, my daily schedule that I've worked out to maximize my efficiency and maximize my productivity in supporting my family and doing the things that keep me going is just going to be disrupted, because I already knew that today was going to get disrupted, and sure enough, despite me trying my hardest, yep, it got disrupted.
It's like, hey, don't come by from this time to this time. I'm working.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll be there that time to that time.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, and they were just here yesterday, and I told them, guys, you got to come back later. And so then I called the office, like, please tell your maintenance guys not to come from 10:30 to 12:30 any day of the week. Well, and I've been asked.
We'll have it there sometime from 10:30 to 12:30.
I've been asked, if your schedule is so stressed, why do you keep doing this? It's like, because this is like the one thing every day that I look forward to. It's the one thing that makes me feel good besides hanging out, because you're like, oh, well, yeah, but you got your family. It's like, everybody knows full well that hanging out with family is a crapshoot as to whether or not it's going to be a good thing, especially when you have a teenager.
So how many, other than this stream, how many places do you have that you can vent?
I have art, and that's it.
And very, very realistically, you can't vent everything to a spouse.
Hey, we have a new colonist. All right, so...
Yeah, so this is not out of the things to isolate from, to reduce and limit. This is probably not the best one to get rid of.
Let's name this one El Dirty Squirrel, since he's here today.
All right.
Popped up in chat earlier, been lurking since. So there, we now have El Dirty Squirrel.
Man, lurk away.
Yep, we like lurkers. But yeah, well, and I've managed to kind of fence some of that off by taking the stream and saying, you know what, this is where I'm going to talk about this is where I'm going to talk about the issues I'm facing, and maybe someone else will benefit from it. So that kind of turns the people who would say something right around real quick. When they hear what is like, wait, you spend 2 hours a day playing video games? Well, hey, maybe you should blah, 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 blah. It's like, I have canceled it before. And what was it? Not last week, but the week before. Remember? I couldn't get it done, so I just pushed off. It was my first week doing the new job, and you were there. I canceled the stream entirely. I kept pushing it back, and eventually I canceled it. I didn't play a video game, like for fun, play a video game from Thursday at 9:30 in the morning until Monday morning at 10:30.
So we have this concept of a culture.
Now those knuckleheads have marked it complete.
Work for work's sake it's not unique to Americans, but Americans are we're just convinced that work, busyness is...
You talk for a second. I need to call the office.
All right. Yeah, so we have this concept that work and busyness is in and of itself healthy. that taking time off. I mean, so studies show that out of the industrialized tech countries, the U.S. has one of the highest rates of vacation time left unused. So we earn vacation time in the U.S. and we don't use it, and that's because we have this cultural conscious of work for work's sake is honorable, it's healthy, it's the right thing to do. If you're taking time off, if you're relaxing, you're being lazy, and that's so bad. It is so bad. If you look back at our history, and a lot of people are like this, a lot of cultures, probably all, I don't know, probably is such a big word. All is such a big word. But in the frontier, you have story after story of, spouses committing suicide. You have, beatings, like, oh, hey, so I have a stressful day. Instead of finding a way to distract myself from it, instead of spending some time on play or entertainment, I'm going to vent all of that energy, all of that pent up aggression. I'm going to beat my kids. I'm going to beat my spouse. I'm going to, get in fights. I'm going to go off the deep end. It's just, so if you can't really say, oh, playing 2 hours of video games every day is bad when you need that exit. You need that separation from reality. Like, you can call it an addiction, but if it's an addiction, that implies that there's a fundamental need. So chemical addictions, some chemicals interfere with our brain patterns to the point where we then require it, or maybe not require it to live, but require it for our brain to continue functioning properly. And video games, reading, television, sports. I mean, people find these outlets, and you can call it an addiction, but if you need an outlet so badly that you're spending so much time doing it, there's a reason for that. You need something. There's something missing, and if you find a way to solve that missing link, good. That's a lot better than not finding something. If you there are much healthier. There are healthy ways to find what's missing. There are unhealthy ways to find what's missing, and one of the only ways, other than the chemical or biological ramifications of a lot of, let's say, drugs or alcohol, or even there are things that are less beneficial and have more negative consequences than video games, frankly. If playing video games, playing sports, people get addicted to work, if whatever it is that you're doing is damaging other aspects of your life, relationships, family, that's a strong hint that your own priority system doesn't match what you're telling yourself it matches. And that's something, I mean, let's go back to why we're here. Something's not functioning properly. Something's not functioning the way we want it to function. And hey, there's ways to get help for that. And so if all you're trying to do, let's say, like, oh, you have an addiction to, you're spending too much time recreating, you're spending too much time playing basketball, you're spending too much time at the office, is that something you're spending more time doing that than you want to be doing? Is that your priority or somebody else's priority? And what do you want from it? You can get help. You can first is identifying
I'm back.
yourself, figuring yourself out, identify what it is that you want. And if what you want is in line with, whatever pressures you're getting, then yeah, go get help for that. If not, then communication. But first is understanding yourself. And don't let somebody else tell you who you should be.
So yeah, those maintenance people just put in this file. We tried to fix this 3 times and were turned away 3 times. Like, no, you were turned away twice. And the second time you were turned away, the second time you came, you didn't have what you needed. And then the last time you came, the second time you were turned away was after. Yeah, so the off
right,
after
prior notice to not come at the time.
Yeah, I just called the office like, oh yeah, we put that in there yesterday. He's like, well, clearly they didn't read it. And so I'm.
So yeah, it's like, so I'm gonna not have this service now because they didn't read.
Yeah,
the
and
instructions.
it's this, and all it is blinds. I think it's a bolt that needed to be put on, but they're gonna have to replace the entire thing. But the problem is that window right there, at night. Guess what's in full view of anybody that walks by? All of my stuff here.
Mm-hmm. And that's not inviting. Like,
And
oh,
not
hey,
inviting
come
at
on,
all, or the
come
fact that
drop
hey,
it.
that's right out. This is right outside our bedroom, and if we forget to put our robes on,
Oh, that too. Okay,
Allosaurus.
these 3 Allosauruses, before they grow up full, we gotta kill them.
Where are they?
Because they were ones that went feral from us.
Mm-hmm. Well, recruit them and kill them.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, we can't recruit the wild dinosaurs, but you mean the peoples.
The peoples.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have the manpower right now to. We'll just have to start fresh with the animals. But I mean, it's
And Allosauruses, while they're babies,
It's
are
frust-
much more-
it's frustrating, but I mean the as we had it, it was just becoming indefensible.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't agree with that, but this many animals is.
It's a lot of
unmanageable for really.
animals. Well, and I think, and the one that I was watching your single stream, your single player one that you were playing, you had a lot more people to manage the animals.
Yes. And I think that I was not taking that into account.
So yeah, sounds like you had a nice serious talk while I was gone.
Just talking about I was commenting on your experiences of having people saying things like you're spending too much time playing video games.
Yeah, I mean that weekend that I talked about before. Yeah, I may have watched you play all weekend. Like,
But you were working.
but yeah, that Saturday I spent all day Saturday. How many times did I say I'm popping up because I have to record?
Yeah, I just assumed at any given moment that you weren't.
Hey, Postal Pyro, thanks for that follow.
You couldn't hear me, or you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
To it.
Well, I mean, yeah. How many times I'd said, hey, I've got to record because I was making those videos for that class.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them when I was done with that, I was like, I don't mind doing it this way. Hey, no worries. I'm glad you followed. Welcome into the Rat Pack. Welcome into the mischief, as they call.
Absolutely. Howdy.
We're talking mental health awareness, mental health stuff, and we're killing Allosauruses while we do it.
Believe it or not, these are baby. Oh my gosh, it pissed them all off.
Oh
I don't
my
like
word!
that.
Run, Dukes, Dukes, my poops, run away!
Sorry, Dukes. You might be dead here. Oh my gosh. But like I said, these are baby Allosauruses.
Easier to kill them now.
Yeah, so even if we lose Dukes...
Yes,
it's better
this
than
is
losing-
this is modded. Although the next time we play, we're not going to have the dinosaurs.
Yeah, so the dinosaur... We're playing with a mod that I just want to give... Oh, you can't. I was going to say zoom out and show people kind of the density of the trees.
Do we?
lack of
Do we?
them.
Yeah, we don't have Fertile Planet, do we?
We do.
Oh, we do? I thought we took it out.
No.
Oh yeah. But even
So-
then, with that in there, look how there's not
With
that many
Fertile
trees.
Planet, the trees are just annihilated. The
Especially in this
vegetation is
area.
Gone. Yeah, and like if you zoom out, you can just see just barren
Modded
land.
Android only runs. Nice. Yeah, we're not sure what we're going to do for our next multiplayer run, which we do on Tuesday, Thursdays. We think we may do something that's like a take on Warren 33's run that he's doing right now, which is basically to get to a certain level of colony wealth. So we would only have the multiplayer mod, and run basically the colony of that. But yeah, because I think it's a tribal start. I'd have to look at the thing that I sent you in Steam. Yeah, good old Warren. Yeah, I actually, before Chalice Mike wakes up on Tuesday, Thursdays at least, before Chalice Mike wakes up and entertains me with his, or comes home from school and entertains me by letting me watch his single player game on Steam broadcast, I spend the morning with Warren just sitting there on the left side of my screen and silent, so I've got something over there just to occasionally look at while I'm sitting here trying to figure out what these people are saying in my transcription job. El Dirty Squirrel, what are you doing? Go rescue him. Okay, so I got El Dirty Squirrel rescuing Dukes.
All right. Yeah, El Dirty Squirrel had just woken up.
Ah, yep. There we go. So he's rescuing Dukes. And he's having a minor break wrist. Really? What's your issue?
I will have Watershine take the long
He's hungry.
run and come over and...
Yeah, he's hungry.
Actually, this is going to be over really soon.
He'll be fine after he drops Dukes off. He can go eat. But yeah, welcome in, Postal Pyro. We've been we were just talking about honestly stigmatization when it comes to mental health issues. My daughter used to fall asleep to Warren when he had his late night schedule. Yeah, that was one of the things that when he started streaming in the morning, I thought, man, I can watch you again because I would never be able to watch him. There's one other streamer who's an overnight streamer for me because he's a couple hours behind who I wish I could watch during the day, and that's Northern Quarter. I just watch his VODs. But yeah, I learned a lot. I've learned a lot about Rimworld from watching Warren and Northern Quarter.
Watershine is running over to help.
In fact, since I mentioned them, let's go ahead and give them a shout out. Warren actually popped by yesterday. Oh, that's the wrong one. That extra 3 there matters when you're shouting out people. And then Northern Quarter. I have $1,400 and still learn from him. Yeah, I don't even want to know. I know my hours aren't that high. Rimworld 581. Civ 6 though, that's a little different. Civ 6 I'm at 1,200. And Civ 5 I'm like almost 2,000.
Oh.
Cool. Yeah, I enjoy both. They're very different. They're very different streamers. They're very different. And if you want, one of the things I really enjoy about Northern Quarter is he kind of does his playthroughs like he would do sports talk radio, especially Darkest Dungeon. But watching a Canadian play The Longest Dark, there's just no end to that entertainment. Especially when he gets attacked by a bear or wolves, or as we call them, interns. So.
You call them interns?
Well, the joke was when The Longest Dark first came out, we were just talking about the development of the game, and I made the joke at one point that because they were trying to, they were talking about the people that made the game, and I made the joke that the interns must have gone to Canada to understand what it was like to live up there, and it drove them crazy, and they went feral and became the wolves. So whenever the wolves would attack, we would just call out interns. I have, honestly, the kind of Postal Power, I have looked at Anno 1800. I watched Azili playing that last week. It kind of has a Tropico feel to it. And Tropico 5 is one I want to go back and play some more of. I know they now have Tropico 6, but I'm not dropping the money on that.
Is Anno 1800 the one... Okay, so either Anno 1800 or the new Tropico looks so much like Windward.
That I think I've seen them both. They kind of both look a lot like Windward.
I mean, obviously
with the colony management side of it.
With the colony management side of it.
Yeah, I think Anno 1800 looks more like Windward though than Tropico 6.
Because I had glanced and saw somebody playing some game that I thought was Windward at first, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of Anno 1800. Every time we watch Jane the Virgin, because my wife and I have been watching that. Every time we watch Jane the Virgin, I get the urge to play Tropico, because the music is so similar. Because it takes place in Florida, so you got a lot of that Cuban influence, and that's just kind of like the motif of Tropico is that you're basically running your own little Cuba. So I just always get the urge. What is he? Here. Plasteel. Hey, you found some plasteel. Nice. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, did you see how far back that?
Yeah, and that one's pretty far back there. So we got about 15 minutes left in the stream. Is there anything you want to wrap up in our discussion we were having earlier?
Not really. I have a download coming at some point.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Let's see. Let me dismiss this alarm before it goes off in a minute.
Yeah, since I already commented on it.
Yeah. I need to watch the new Game of Thrones.
Yes, you do.
talk about priorities getting knocked off by mental health disorders.
I was frankly stunned yesterday when you told me you hadn't watched it. I was like, what?
Okay,
What?
so to express the level of fandom,
And I should state, I could care less about Game of Thrones.
he's read the books that have been released.
And I want HBO to hurry up. My view on it is simple. Hurry up and release the stupid show, finish it, so that he will stop milking the show for all it's worth and just publish the books.
Yep, I'm convinced that's why the books aren't out yet. He and HBO were just trying to book.
The level of influence and role that he had in the development of it, there is no way that they are not basing it on stuff that he's actually written. And I mean, there was an interview done with him several years ago about them, and he was talking about how close they were to being done. Yeah. And so the fact that they aren't out, it's strictly a money play. It's the same. It's the exact same reason the Harry Potter, the last movie, was split in two, and Twilight split the last movie in two, and Hunger Games split their last movie into two, or I think they may have split the last two. Yeah, they split the last movie because it's just a money grab, trying to milk it for all it's worth.
I have dropped gobs of money on charity-sponsored raffles for
Game of Thrones
access. Yeah, exclusive Game of Thrones access stuff. We're talking hundreds of dollars here, which is stupid.
But it went for charity.
It did.
So you were helping.
Exactly. It all went to charity, which is else I would not have done it.
Yeah.
But if I had the money for it, there was a few years ago, J.R.R. Martin and HBO did a charity raffle for, I think it was just J.R.R. Martin, but a charity raffle.
G.R.R., not J.R.R.
Oh, who am I thinking of? J.R.R. Tolkien.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Whatever.
One of those three old white males that have dominated, fantasy, epic fantasy for a century.
The one who's still alive. I would say Raymond Feist.
Not to the same level. Nowhere near the same level. Yeah. If you are in the fantasy circles, you know who Raymond Feist is. If you're not, you don't. Yeah. People know who J.R.R. Tolkien is, and people know who George R.R. Martin is. Robert Jordan, I'd say would be the third one, but again, outside of
that's not to the same scope. Yeah.
The animals are still trapped.
Oh.
I'll put Willoughby. Dogs. Yeah.
Don't look too closely at what's present and not present, please.
You saw them.
The only reason why Willoughby is there is because he's bonded. The one that is not bonded is gone.
It's fine. It's fine. Zoe's not going to know. She was changing everybody's names anyway. Yeah. But yeah, in non-fantasy circles, everybody knows who Tolkien is. And at this point, everybody knows who Martin is because of HBO. Okay. Robert Jordan, they've never been able to figure out how to do Wheel of Time effectively on TV.
It would have to be a series.
Yeah, you couldn't do movies.
To get funding for the full series, I can't help but think that it would get treated poorly.
For the full series, yeah, I think it would be treated poorly. But then again, there are entire sections of that book that you could leave out and it wouldn't matter. There are whole characters that are only in the book once. That he makes, and he writes them all the same. They're these people who are convinced that they have the answer to rule the world. All of them are exactly the same. You could cut all of those little side characters out. There's so many storylines in there that could be effectively dropped, and it would not affect the main storyline. In fact, if they only focused on Rand and just told his story, and didn't tell any story,
16 books,
and didn't tell, it wouldn't be, and didn't tell any other story except for his. You just what was connected to his. You didn't get any of those little side things, nothing like that. You could do that. Probably you might be able to do it in a movie trilogy, but in a TV series like Game of Thrones style, they could do it.
If you wanted to flesh the world out the way that Robert Jordan fleshed it out, it would have to have a lot of funding on the scale of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it would. Someone would have to, and someone would have to pony that. Somebody would have to pony that money up in advance to do that.
You're talking about twice as much content as Game of Thrones. And what are we on? Season 8?
You're on season 8, and that's splitting They were splitting some of the books that already existed, because the last 2 books that were published were basically concurrent books. Like they overlapped, like I think a half of one and half of the other overlapped with each other.
I thought it was the second and third to last that were concurrent, and then the last one is.
Nope. It was the very last 2.
Because Dance of Dragons is the most recent, right?
Dance of Dragons is the most recent. That one, there were sections of that. I think up to half of that one occurred at the same time as the book previous to that. But that's not the first time he did that. I mean, and Robert Jordan did it. Book 9 was so good because it was so focused on the central stories, it completely dropped Matt. So Book 10 went back and told you what happened to Matt. Book 10, the entirety of Book 10 took place during the end of Book 9. It was, and 7 and 8 were supposed to be one book that his editor and publisher forced him to split into 2 for Robert Jordan. But yeah, so 16 books. That's counting the prequel book. And there's more content that technically Brandon Sanderson could be recruited to go back and write from prequel stuff, because he didn't finish telling the prequel stuff. He wrote one prequel, and he had a plan to write. It was a prequel and then a sequel and then a prequel and then a sequel. He never got to it was supposed to be 3 prequels. He never got to the other 2 prequels because the dude died. That's when you know you're taking too long.
Yeah.
You have it paused?
Well, he wasn't. Yeah, so I'm trying to put all the animals back where they should be.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to sell these. That's one of the problems. Is a lot of these that I want that we have are intended to be sold.
Well, you could just turn them into meat.
Nobody is. And I was thinking of doing it with the Quetzalcoatluses.
You know, if you intentionally isolate one of them away from the others, the way you're managing the animals, you could probably pick some of them off without ticking the rest of them off. You know, if you wanted to turn some of them into meat. Just saying.
No. If you set them for slaughter, it won't piss any of them off.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It was the ones that you just went to kill them.
Feral.
Yeah,
they've gone feral.
That's true.
And I was just letting them go. It didn't occur to me that they were going to start turning to our animals.
So, just to that on that back to last topic, it's 5 books. That's Game of Thrones, right? Or A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah. So far,
Song of Ice and Fire is 5 books.
And it was
I think
3 and 4 that were concurrent.
Okay. And it's only, I think he only has, is it 1 or 2 books planned? I think it's 2. Oh, I know that. No, he's confirmed the title of 1.
Oh, okay.
I agree. I am not a big fan of Postal Pyro. I am not a big fan of George R. R. Martin. At this point, the only reason I'm reading it is just because I did.
I enjoy the books. I'm a much bigger fan of the show.
Solar Flare, and I'm not a fan of the show because, for me, frankly, they made some changes to the story that are straight up changes from the book that completely ruined some of the story.
Oh, and for me, like people say about how much more graphic sexually the show.
Well, they didn't need to do that. It was already graphic.
I was
Jacob.
I was going to say that
you're still alive.
Some of the things that are described in the books are nowhere near as graphic in the show.
No, they can't. They can't because in the book, in the books, let's just be honest. In the books, he is brutally graphic about how the men treat women.
I will be right back.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to manage the call and everything, I've been trying to hold this off, but Tucker time can't last forever.
Go. Ew. Quetzalcoatlus is dead. Somebody needs to haul him. Oh, Stasius is. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of George R.R. because of his writing style. I will give him his credit where his credit is due. He can write dialogue. I love his dialogue. The problem is, for me, is everything in between the dialogue. There's only one portion of the book that wasn't dialogue that I found nearly as intriguing and entertaining, and that was the battle for King's Landing. That's it. The way he told that in there, that's it. And I will use his own words against him here. He went on record when he was specifically talking about the adult scenes in the book, the way he writes them. He went on record and said that in reference to those scenes, that he found the sensory input. We're not giving any spoilers. I haven't watched J. Kim's, and so I have not watched. You're getting no spoilers. I am simply referencing books that have been published. So we're talking. If you don't know what happened in book 1, I can't help you. I have not watched the shows though. So, but no, in reference to the writing style is what I'm talking about here. So, reference to the writing style. He said, and I quote, that the sensory input of a scene is more important than service to the narrative. Now, he was specifically talking about the adult scenes, but he just described his entire writing style, where he'll have amazing dialogue, which kind of does service the narrative, but then he goes into what I called wolf mode. And you all know what I'm talking about in those books, where he'll go on and on and on forever about the like, say, Bran or one of those other characters that had the wolves or anything like that. And he would just get lost in the sensory input of a scene. And I would find myself skipping entire pages and not missing anything until I got to dialogue again. And he also has no problem whatsoever wasting your time with characters. So now, again, I don't know anything past the last book because I'm not watching the show. I don't care about what the show is revealing or anything like that, because for me, the books are canon. If the show diverges from the books, the show is no longer canon for me, and the show has diverged from the books. Now, as to how much will match going forward, with the stuff that from season 7 and season 8, we won't know until he writes the books, because he has a role in it, and they're basing it on discussions with him. So there's going to be some similarities, but for me, whenever the books and the show diverge, the books win out, the show does not. And in one book, there's a storyline for a character where this character was sent on a mission, and no one knew about the mission, and no one knew what happened to the person. And in the end, the person ended up potentially removed from the story. And at the point that the person was potentially removed from the story, because no one knew what that character was doing, and because we, the reader, knew that she was really off on a wild goose chase and was chasing the wrong thing, that book devoted 10% of the book to that storyline, and in the end it turned out to be nothing. And in all of the writing classes that I've studied and in all of the work I've done with publishers and editors, you cannot do that, because you're basically wasting the reader's time with story that doesn't service the narrative. And it's unfortunate, because prior to that, I actually liked that character and how it was interacting with the story. I thought that it added some depth to some other characters in the story. But so yeah, I don't like George R.R. When I first read his book back in 2000, I kind of just tossed it aside. I came back to it about a decade later. I'm also not a huge fan of J.R.R. Tolkien. I liked the movies, and I liked the radio drama, but really his writing style is very archaic at this point. He would not get that book published today. They would send that book back. And frankly, so would Robert Jordan's. Because they're just too long. And it takes too long for anything to happen. And in the publishing industry, the way they are now, the way they're constantly looking for the next big hit, stuff has to happen. You don't get 100 pages to hook a reader anymore. You got to follow David Eddings. David Eddings is an author that I really enjoy. He's an author that I think more writers, particularly fantasy writers, should study. And he was famous for saying, "You give me 3 pages, and I will have you hooked." And I took him up on that challenge. I read the Belgariad, which was the first. It was a series of 5, followed by another series of 5, the Malorian, and it was so popular he later wrote 3 other books connected to it. And you read that opening, that prelude to the first book of the Belgariad, and he's not wrong. He'll have you hooked. And frankly, he came close to duplicating that kind of opening in the other books. But he never was able to do it for me as well as he did in that first book of the Belgariad. It was stunning to me how true it was. And when I wrote my book, I kind of took that challenge on. Can I hook you in the first paragraph? Can I in a single paragraph hook you on a setting and like the place, the world, give you enough of a feel for the story that you would want to keep reading? And I've been told I did. Postal Pyro, how does MP work? So we are playing the same colony. You see right here, you see this mouse? That's Golgoth. Thank you, device. That's my reminder. It's just about time to wrap up. That is Golgoth, Chalice Mike, that is him. He and I are basically managing the same colony. We could do 2 different colonies in the same playthrough. We can both manage the same characters. We've run into this a lot where I give him one task and he gives them another task, so it requires some coordination. When it comes to doing it with mods, you kind of have to be, it's hit or miss with them. Some of them will cause it to desync and we'll have to reload.
Some of it will just break it.
Some of it will just break it, yeah. So he and I are basically playing the same colony, managing the same, all of it together. And at one point we did have 2 colonies because we needed steel and some other resources, but we abandoned that one later.
We did talk about the next time playing from the get-go, splitting it into 2 colonies.
Yeah, dropping in like a team, basically a team that we would split evenly in half, and then we would go immediately and settle 2 separate colonies at 2 different locations and abandon the first one, and then just go from there and see how we could do. So Zoe has gotten food poisoning from a bowl of stew. Cause incompetent cook. Zoe, considering how much of the cooking you do, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah, look who's doing. Yeah.
On that note, in my thorough trashing of George R.R. and J.R.R. Tolkien and Robert Jordan and all that, and just okay. So guys, I'm not just blowing smoke out of it here. I have published a book, and while I'm not going to say I'm anywhere near as good as them, I learned from their mistakes. I interpreted their mistakes.
Your criticism is just your criticism. Exactly. I don't think anybody that takes another person's criticism or opinion as anything but just...
Yes.
Let me phrase that. Anybody that takes another person's opinion as fact is an idiot.
Yes. Yeah. It is strictly opinion, and I can defend those opinions. But more importantly,
is fact is also an idiot.
More importantly, what I wanted to do was what kind of a person would I be if I sat here and I offered all these criticisms of these authors, and then I turned around and did exactly the same thing in my own writing?
Yeah,
I'd be a hypocrite.
So when others' mistakes is smart. And
in this case, I'll be honest. I'll just say it. What I considered to be other people's mistakes, I consider wasting your time. I consider wasting your time as a reader to be unforgivable. Story should matter. When you get later in the stories, some parts may seem like it's like, well, how is that connected? You may get to the end. In some stories, you'll get to the end and you won't be able to put that together. And for me, that's unforgivable. There are entire sections of Robert Jordan's series that now that I've read it all the way to the end, were completely wasted time. And that's for me, that's unforgivable. It's a little harder when you're talking about a series that isn't complete. So the issue that I raised with that one book of George R.R. Martin's, where 10% of a book was wasted on a storyline that had no end.
Yeah.
That storyline could still be redeemed. That doesn't mean that at the point that it left off, that storyline was a complete waste.
Yeah.
It's just you have to wait. You have to give him time.
Brienne of Tarth, right?
Yeah, Brienne of Tarth. Yeah, the whole storyline where she was sent on a quest to find a specific sister, and the entire time she was gone, she was chasing the wrong sister and never even came close. And by the time it got to the end where she potentially was removed from the story, no one knew anything about what she had done. No one knew whether, and even she didn't even know that she was chasing the wrong one.
They've already broken. Well, I think that they've done some repair work on her story in the shows.
They may have, but I mean, and I think part of it may come from what comes into the story later. Yeah, but I was
going to say there's still some redemption possible for her character in the books, but in the books at least, what's done is done.
Yep. Just a second. Maintenance is here.
10% of a book waste.
So you're on your own for a second.
All right. Oh, we're still streaming. That's fine with me. I mean, we started late. We can run late. At least maintenance is coming in the time frame he said. 4 minutes after. Yeah, I mean, not to mention that they came while he told them don't come. Yeah, at least now they were told read the instructions. They're like, oh, okay, we'll come later. So yeah, multiplayer it introduces a lot more technical difficulties. I would say that's the only drawback. It ultra limits the mods you can use. And if you're a big mod fan like most, I would say most Rimworld players, you have to be very careful, and you're not going to be able to use a lot of the things you want to use. So if you notice, our storage isn't nearly as pretty as it could be. A big part of that is the inventory management mods are limited. Like Ogre Stack is what everybody says, just use Ogre Stack, which is nice in that, yeah, we can stack 20,000 silver on one another. We can stack 1,000 wood on one another. But in the end game colonies, you've still got massive storage. So it's better than vanilla storage. But like the shelves, you'll notice we have a lot of disassembled shelves. That's because, well, resource racks and shelves and stuff. And that's because what we found is it doesn't actually change the storage capacity for anything. It doesn't mean you can stack items together. It doesn't mean, all it is just visual aesthetic. So yeah, multiplayer is good, but the limitations on mods, I think, are probably the biggest drawback. And there's mods that are supposed to be compatible, but we found that we just couldn't use. So for example, we're using an animal mod with the Dinotopia to give us the dinosaurs, but that's incompatible with the mod for animal logic. We were able, just by cutting one out, and it's, just basic troubleshooting, cutting one mod out at a time, two mods that are supposed to both be fully compatible together aren't. So yeah, it takes some just playing around to find what works. It's so fun. I enjoy it. There are things that I don't like focusing on. There are things that he doesn't like focusing on, and having both of us to balance that together is great.
I personally don't like managing all those animals.
Yeah, whereas for me, it's just like, whatever, I'll do it.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up.
All right.
So I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be streaming a new game. I'll talk about it in Discord, which you guys can...
Early access?
Not early access, it's coming out tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So, but yep, the community that you guys see flashing up there above me, there, the F2K, they got some keys for people who are willing to stream it day one, so I'm doing that tomorrow. So I will come back tomorrow with that in just a second. So the guys aren't, as they walk by me, they're fine. You guys can just go right on by. I turned the camera off. I can hang those up. So.
All right, well, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you well, he'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, you have a good one.
Yep, I will be back tomorrow, and say goodbye, Jealous Mike.
Goodbye, Jealous Mike.
All right, sorry for the ending going all messy. Thank you, El Dirty Squirrel, for popping in. Thank you for everybody else for showing up, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.